Hola chicos, today's lesson is about the imperfect. So we're getting ready to delve into the past. You guys have all seen the preterite and the imperfect before. So this is going to be a review, and it's also going to give you your take on how I like to explain the grammar for these two past tense. They're difficult because they don't really parallel exactly the way that we use the past tense in English. So it's really important to understand the concept behind each verb so that you can make the appropriate decision. So far in our story, we have written our introductory paragraph. You are going to rewrite that paragraph for me for next class, and you're going to take your verbs and you're just going to put them all in the imperfect. Your paragraph should be made up of descriptive components. They all should be in the imperfect, but I will double check everybody's to make sure that you didn't accidentally throw in a sentence that should have been in the preterite. All right, let's go ahead and take a quick look at the imperfect together. I would recommend that you use this Google Doc later to review. So I started off with just verb formation. How do you form the imperfect? Your ARs have the same endings. And I'm sorry, your ER and your IRs have the same endings. So you have to memorize two sets of endings. I always remember the EAs as I think about Old MacDonald. So EIEIO. That might help you remember that it's the EAs that go with your ER/IR verbs and your ABAs that go with your AR verbs. I strongly recommend that you have a favorite AR verb, a favorite ER verb, and a favorite IR verb, and you default to conjugating those guys if you have a moment where you can't remember exactly what you're supposed to do. The nice thing about the imperfect is there's only 3 irregular verbs, and that's ver, ir, and ser. The only thing that makes ver irregular is that you keep that E in there. If we actually look at how you conjugate an ER verb, the endings are all regular. It's just that if we didn't have that E, it would say via, and that doesn't really sound like the verb ver. So you only have 3 irregular verbs to memorize. All right, what's most challenging about the preterite and the imperfect is knowing when to use them. So the first use of the imperfect is what we've been working on with our writing for the last several days, which is creating a context for your story. You're going to create a context for a story in Spanish exactly the same way that you would create a context for a story in English. So how do we usually start a story? We have to describe the protagonist. So again, here's everything that we've been doing, describing their personality, their appearance, their background, their mood, their clothing, their age, their thoughts, where they're located at the start of the story, what the weather is like. An important use of this ongoing action in progress is that nothing is actually happening. Everything that is given to you is the background that you need so that you can understand the events that are going to happen next. So what I need you guys to do after you are done watching this video and reviewing this document is to take your paragraph of the first story, rewrite it for me, and just put all the verbs in the imperfect. I will then edit it, and then you will do your second draft. I have given you an example of all of these guys, okay? All right, as we continue down to the second use of the imperfect, it's 2 simultaneous actions happening at the same time. So I was eating while my friend was watching TV. The students were taking the test while the teacher was grading a different test. It doesn't matter when these actions started. It doesn't matter when these actions stop. What matters is that they're happening at the same time. So just like in our introductory paragraph where you're describing and you're creating a context, we don't know when any of those things started or when any of those things ended. It doesn't matter. What matters with the imperfect is that it's something that is taking place at the moment of the story. So a hint with the 2 simultaneous actions is that they're oftentimes linked by the word mientras, which means meanwhile. Meanwhile sets you up to believe that 2 things are happening simultaneously. So first use of the imperfect is creating a context. Second use of the imperfect is 2 actions happening at the same time. We don't know when any of these actions started or when any of these actions ended, and it doesn't matter. Third use of the imperfect is going to be a habitual or a recurring action in the past. So again, we don't know when these actions started or when they ended. We just know that they happened over and over and over and over. A hint for this use is that a lot of times you'll have a time frame in the sentence that tells you that something has happened over and over. So if you see every day, every Monday, every week, all the time, frequently, often, never, all of those are going to trigger the imperfect with this use of recurring actions in the past. The last use of the imperfect that we're going to look at today combines the preterite. So it's going to be an ongoing action in the imperfect. Again, we don't know when it started, we don't know when it ended, and that becomes interrupted by the preterite. So that would be something like, I was walking down the street when I fell down. I was sleeping when the phone rang. I was reading my book when I fell asleep. There's an action that's in progress, we don't know when it started, and that action gets interrupted by the preterite. All right. A hint is that we often see it with the word cuando connecting the two halves of a sentence. All right, so what I want you guys to do is I want you to review this very, very, very carefully. I want you to go back. I want you to rewrite your paragraph in the imperfect. At that point, I will grade it. Next class, we're going to be looking at how to use the preterite and in contrast with the imperfect, and then we're going to work on this for the next several days. If you have any questions, please let me know in comments. Thank you.